The Feminine Mystique. The Feminine Mystique was written by Betty Friedan in 1963, and it created a whirl in feminism and the ideas of women. What is the feminine mystique about? The feminine mystique largely focuses on the dissatisfaction of women in their homes and their roles in society. They were stuck in an unenjoyable life, and the main issue was referred to as the problem that has no name, and that was the all-around unhappiness in women. Women were said to have equal rights to men, yet they had the right to choose furniture and a car rather than a career and a real life. The book largely discusses unhappiness in women and their desire for more. There were themes of domesticity and femininity, nature versus nurture, and sex and marriage throughout the book, and Friedan goes in depth in talking about what the woman did with her days as a housewife. Betty Friedan was born on February 4, 1921, in Peoria, Illinois, to Harry and Miriam Goldstein, who were Jews from Russia and Hungary. Her full name before marriage was Betty Naomi Goldstein. Her dad worked while her mother stayed home, and when he became ill, Miriam, her mother, started working and felt actualized as opposed to when she was a housewife. From early on, Betty had decided that working was more gratifying than staying home as a housewife simply by observing her mother. As a young girl, she would write about injustice and even had a newspaper with her friends where they wrote about home life. After schooling in her hometown, she went to Smith College, where she was the editor-in-chief, and she caused much controversy because of her writings. After graduating from Smith College in 1942, she spent a year in graduate school at the University of California, Berkeley, and she focused on studying psychology. After college, she worked for various newspapers, but when she got married, she stayed home as a suburban housewife while doing freelance work for magazines. Friedan decided that she wasn't happy or satisfied as a housewife, and in 1957 she conducted a survey and questioned many of her friends at a Smith College reunion. After questioning them, she discovered that her friends were equally as dissatisfied with their lives. Because of these results, Betty decided to go into extensive research on the topic. She created other questionnaires, conducted interviews, analyzed the psychology of women, and wrote The Feminine Mystique by 1963. The Feminine Mystique's influence. The publication of The Feminine Mystique prompted an entire civil rights organization that was co-founded by Friedan. So many women were inspired by the book, and as they read the words of Friedan, other housewives, and psychologists, they realized that they weren't alone in being dissatisfied with their lives. The organization that was created after the book was published was called the National Organization for Women, and Betty Friedan's books, articles, and organization led to more spirit within the women's movement and a large desire for change. Women were done being housewives, and they wanted to work and bring purpose to their lives. The Test of Time. The book was published in 1963 and is still consistently read and talked about today. It deserves recognition, and it will continue to receive that recognition throughout many generations. Is The Feminine Mystique a world classic? A classic is a book that meets some common high standards for quality, appeal, longevity, and influence, as written in an article for thoughtco.com. In this same article, it is written that a classic must be relevant throughout generations and have an appeal to every reader. Although the book significantly appeals to a woman and a feminist, any reader may feel connected to Friedan's words. Since it discusses so many relevant topics in the world like marriage, sex, children, labor, etc., it can appeal and feel relatable to every reader. Unfortunately, women are still facing many issues that were presented in this book even after many generations have passed. Although we've grown as a society, women still face sexism, and their problems still correlate with those from 1963, which is when the book was written. It's unfortunate that as these generations have passed, the problems are still relevant. Criticisms and competing theories of the feminine mystique. Although the feminine mystique was empowering to women in general, those who were interviewed in the book were mostly white, upper middle class women who lived in the suburbs and could afford to stay home with their children. It failed to acknowledge the fact that there were black women in cities who couldn't afford to have as many children at a young age, but it was the social norm, so they felt pressure to do so. In addition, the book was written during the civil rights movement, yet there was little to no mention of that movement or blacks in general. It was a book that was intended to be on the side of women, but it didn't include all women, and its biggest criticism is that it's racist. The biggest critics of the feminine mystique were also those who had competing theories. They argued that Friedan ignored the existence of all non-white women and poor white women. Friedan so heavily discussed wanting more in reference to careers, but if all upper-class housewives found careers, then the careers of the other women would be babysitters, and they would have to watch and take care of the rich white woman's child. The competitors of Friedan would have included all races and classes and discussed all possible careers and possibilities in lives rather than focusing on a specific type of woman. Throughout the book, she interviews many women who have health, fine children, a lovely new home, enough money, which was quoted by a 23-year-old mother in blue jeans on page 21 of The Feminine Mystique. There would be fewer criticisms and competing theories had Friedan expanded her range of those she had interviewed. Just like any other book, The Feminine Mystique was both praised and criticized for many different reasons, but this book will always be a classic, and Betty Friedan's name will always be known and talked about in discussions. I used The Feminine Mystique in addition to the following resources in order to complete this analysis. Thank you.